The moment David's car disappeared down the driveway, the house felt too large and too quiet. 3 weeks in Singapore for work, he had said, kissing me goodbye at dawn. I stood on the porch in his oversized Stanford hoodie, waving until the taillights vanished, then went back inside and tried to ignore the hollow echo of my own footsteps. That was Friday morning. By Saturday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Mark stood there with a six-pack in one hand and that crooked smile that had been getting him out of trouble since college. David had texted him the night before, "Keep an eye on Emily while I am gone, man. She hates being alone in that big place." Mark took the request literally. Apparently, reporting for best friend duty, he announced, stepping past me without waiting for an invitation. He smelled like cedar and the faint trace of the gym. And when he brushed my shoulder moving through the doorway, the contact lasted half a second longer than it ever had before. We started innocently enough. He helped me carry the patio furniture into the garage before the forecasted rain, then insisted on fixing the leaky faucet David had been meaning to get to for months. I watched him on his knees under the kitchen sink, white shirt riding up to reveal the cut line of his hips, tools spread around him like he belonged there. Every time he asked for a different wrench, our fingers grazed. Every time, I pretended not to notice the way his eyes flicked to my mouth. By evening, we were on the back deck, steaks on the grill, red wine breathing on the table. The sun bled orange across the hills behind our house in Marin County, and the air smelled of charcoal and eucalyptus. Mark leaned back in his chair, barefoot, one arm stretched along the top of my seat. His thumb kept finding the bare skin at the nape of my neck, tracing idle circles that made my spine loosen against my will. "You okay being rattling around in this place alone?" he asked, voice low. "I am fine," I lied. The truth was I had slept poorly, waking every time the house creaked, imagining footsteps that were not there. He studied me over the rim of his glass. "David worries about you. So do I." There it was again, that half second too long. I should have moved my chair. Instead, I took another sip of wine and let the silence stretch until it felt like something alive between us. Night settled. We moved inside, the living room lit only by the low glow of the fireplace David had insisted on installing last winter. Mark dropped onto the leather sectional, stretched his long legs out, and patted the cushion beside him. "Come here. You look like you are carrying the whole week on your shoulders." I told myself it was harmless. We had known each other for 12 years, double-dated in college, stood up at each other's weddings. His had ended 3 years ago in a quiet divorce. Neither of us ever mentioned. Boundaries had always been clear. I sat not right beside him, but close enough that when he reached for the remote, his forearm brushed my breast through the thin cotton of my tank top. Neither of us moved away. We picked a movie neither of us cared about. Halfway through, the rain started, hard and sudden against the windows. Mark got up to add a log to the fire. When he came back, he did not return to his original spot. He sat closer, thigh pressed to mine, heat radiating through his jeans. I could feel my pulse in my throat. "You are tense," he murmured. His hand settled on the back of my neck again, thumb stroking that same dangerous spot. "Let me..." I should have said no. Instead, I closed my eyes for 1 weak second, and when I opened them, he was watching me with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Dark, patient, hungry. His fingers slid lower, tracing the line of my shoulder, then the strap of my tank top. The room was warm, but goosebumps rose everywhere he touched. "Mark," I whispered. It was not a protest. It sounded more like a question. He answered by leaning in, slowly enough that I could have stopped him. I did not. His lips brushed the corner of my mouth, barely there. Testing. When I did not pull back, he did it again, fuller this time, and the soft sound I made embarrassed me. His hand cupped my jaw, tilting my face so he could take the kiss deeper. It was gentle and devastating, the kind of kiss that feels like falling. I broke away first, breathing hard. "We can't." "I know," he said against my lips, but he did not move back. His forehead rested against mine, both of us trembling. Tell me to leave him. Say the word, and I am gone. Thunder rolled outside. The fire crackled. I listened to the rain and to the blood roaring in my ears, and I could not find the word he was waiting for. His thumb traced my lower lip. I have wanted to do that for longer than I should admit. Another confession hung unspoken between us, so had I. Not seriously, not consciously, just in fleeting, guilty flashes over the years, the kind you push away the moment they surface. But David was halfway across the world, and Mark's hand was sliding down my neck, over my collarbone, stopping just above the neckline of my tank top as if waiting for permission. I did not give it with words. I turned my face into his palm and kissed the center of it, tasting salt and skin. That was all the answer he needed. He pulled me onto his lap in one smooth motion, my knees bracketing his hips. The hoodie had ridden up. His hands found the bare skin of my waist. Thumbs, stroking slow arcs that made my breath hitch. We kissed again, slower this time, deeper, like we had all night to discover how perfectly we fit together. I felt him hard beneath me and rocked instinctively, drawing a rough sound from his throat. Emily, he groaned, breaking the kiss to press his mouth to my neck, teeth grazing the tendon there. My head fell back, fingers threading through his hair. Every nerve in my body was singing. We stayed like that for what felt like hours, hands roaming but never crossing the final lines, clothes still on, breathing ragged. The storm outside matched the one building inside me. When we finally pulled apart, the fire had burned low and the credits of the forgotten movie were rolling. He rested his forehead against mine again. I should go home. You should, I agreed, voice shaky. Neither of us moved. After a long moment he stood, lifting me with him as easily as if I weighed nothing, and set me on my feet. His hands lingered on my hips. Tomorrow, he said, the word heavy with promise and warning. If you want me to stay away, text me before noon, otherwise I am coming back. He kissed me once more, soft and final, then walked out into the rain without looking back. I stood in the doorway, watching his taillights disappear, the same way I had watched David's 24 hours earlier, except this time my lips were swollen, and my body was aching with a need. I had no idea how to name. I locked the door, leaned against it, and pressed my fingers to my mouth. Somewhere upstairs was the bed I shared with my husband. Somewhere across the Pacific. David was probably asleep, trusting me completely. I did not sleep at all that night. I woke up to sunlight slicing through the blinds and the smell of last night still on my skin. Smoke, red wine, and Mark's cologne clinging to the hoodie I had not taken off. My phone showed 11:47 a.m., 13 minutes until his deadline. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over his name. All I had to do was type, "Do not come." 4 letters, 1 space, send. Simple. I never pressed send. At 12:03, the doorbell rang. I was still in the same hoodie and soft cotton shorts, hair twisted up in a messy knot, no makeup. I looked like someone who had spent the night losing a fight with Elf. Mark took one look at me, and the last of his restraint cracked wide open. He stepped inside, shut the door with his foot, and kissed me before I could speak. This was not the careful exploration of last night. This was hunger finally let off the leash. We stumbled down the hallway, mouths fused, hands frantic. He backed me against the kitchen island, lifted me onto the cold marble, and wedged himself between my thighs. The hoodie disappeared over my head. My tank top followed. When his mouth closed over my breast through the lace of my bra, I arched so hard I nearly slid off the counter. He caught me, palms under my thighs, fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks I would trace later in the shower. "Tell me to stop," he said against my skin, voice ragged. "Last chance, Em." I answered by reaching for the hem of his shirt and dragging it off. His body was warmer than the sun, harder than I remembered from pool parties years ago. I ran my hands over the ridges of his abs, the sharp cut of his hips, memorizing the differences between him and the man I would been married to for 8 years. Guilt flickered, then drowned under a wave of raw want. He carried me to the couch, the same couch where everything had started last night. This time, there were no careful pauses. My shorts vanished. His jeans followed. When his fingers slipped beneath my panties and found how ready I was, he groaned my name like it hurt. I bit his shoulder to stay quiet, terrified the neighbors might hear through the open windows. We moved together in a frantic, clumsy rush the first time. Fast, desperate, almost angry. I came with his hand over my mouth and his hips driving into me, the leather sticking to my back. He followed seconds later, burying his face in my neck, body shaking. We stayed locked together, breathing hard. The reality of what we had done settling over us like dust. Afterward, he did not let go. He pulled a throw blanket over us and held me against his chest while our heartbeats slowed. His fingers traced lazy circles on my bare hip. I thought about this, he admitted quietly. Every time David brought you to game nights, every time you laughed at my stupid jokes, I hated myself for it. I pressed my forehead to his collarbone. I thought about it too, on the nights he worked late. When he forgot my birthday last year. Little moments, I always shut it down. We were quiet for a long time. Outside, a lawnmower droned somewhere down the street, ordinary life continuing while ours tilted sideways. Eventually, hunger drove us to the kitchen. He cooked eggs shirtless while I stole his trit shirt, the hem brushing mid-thigh. We ate standing at the island, feeding each other bites between kisses that tasted like salt and regret and butter. Every time our eyes met, the air thickened again. By late afternoon, we were back on the couch, slower this time. He mapped every inch of me with his mouth, learning what made me gasp, what made me beg. When he slid down my body and pushed my knees apart, I tried to close them out of shyness. He kissed the inside of each thigh until I relaxed. Then tasted me until I shattered a second time, fingers twisted in his hair, his name a broken prayer. Afterward, I returned the favor, taking my time, savoring the way his head fell back and his hands fisted in the cushions. When he came, he pulled me up immediately and kissed me like he was drowning, and I was air. The sun dipped low, painting the room gold. We showered together, lazy and thorough, hands sliding over soap-slick skin. In the steam, he pressed me against the tile and took me from behind. Slow and deep, water drumming on our joined bodies. I watched our reflection in the fogged mirror, his arm banded across my chest, my head thrown back against his shoulder. Both of us lost. We never made it to the bedroom that night. We fell asleep, tangled on the couch, the blanket kicked to the floor, his body curled protectively around mine. At some point in the dark, I woke to find him watching me. "This is going to destroy everything," I whispered. "I know," he said, and kissed me anyway. Morning came too soon. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. David, finally on decent Wi-Fi, wanting to video call. Panic spiked through me. Mark was already awake, sitting up, running a hand through his hair. I wrapped the blanket around myself and answered, angling the camera carefully so only my face showed. David looked tired but happy, hotel room behind him. "Hey babe, miss you. How's everything at home?" Mark's hand settled on my bare knee under the blanket, out of frame, thumb stroking gently. I swallowed. Quiet. "Mark came by yesterday, helped with some stuff around the house." David grinned. "Told you he would take care of you." "Put him on, I want to say thanks." I froze. Mark leaned in, face carefully neutral, and waved. "Hey man, all good here, your wife's in good hands." The double meaning hung in the air, thick enough to choke on. They talked for a minute. Guy stuff, work, golf swings, while Mark's fingers drew slow circles higher up my thigh. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from gasping when he brushed the edge of where he would been hours earlier. When the call ended, I dropped the phone like it burned. Mark pulled the blanket away and looked at me with something close to sorrow. 3 more weeks, he said. I nodded, throat tight. 3 more weeks. He kissed me then, soft and devastating, and we both knew we were already too far gone to turn back. The days blurred into a fever I no longer tried to cure. Mark came every morning after David's goodnight text from Singapore, sometimes before the coffee finished brewing. We learned the house by touch, The kitchen island where he bent me over at sunrise, the wide window seat in the study where afternoon light striped our skin, the shower that never quite ran out of hot water no matter how long we stayed under it. We avoided only one room, the master bedroom with its wedding photos and David's side of the bed still perfectly made. Some lines, we silently agreed, were too sharp to cross. By the second week, we stopped pretending there was anything casual about it. He left a toothbrush in the guest bath. I found his running shoes by the door and never moved them. We cooked dinner together, arguing over how much garlic was too much, then ate on the deck while the fog rolled in from the bay, his hand resting possessively on my thigh under the table. At night we talked, really talked, in a way David and I had not in years. Mark told me about the emptiness after his divorce, how he would filled it with work, and one-night stands until none of it touched the loneliness. I admitted the small resentments that had piled up like dust in the corners of my marriage, the forgotten anniversaries, the way David checked his phone during dinner, the slow drift into being roommates who still happened to sleep together. Saying it aloud to Mark felt like lancing a wound. Then we stopped talking and used our mouths for better things. There was a night toward the end of the second week when the guilt hit me so hard I could not breathe. We were on the rug in front of the fireplace, my back to his chest, his hand moving slow between my legs while he whispered filthy, perfect things against my ear. I came hard, shaking. And the moment the pleasure ebbed, shame rushed in to take its place. I started crying, ugly, silent tears that soaked his shoulder. He held me through it without asking stupid questions. When I could finally speak, I told him I felt like two people. The wife who loved her husband, and the woman who could not stop begging his best friend for more. Mark kissed the tears from my temples and said, "You are not two people. You are one woman who has been starving. I am just the bastard who keeps feeding you." I laughed through the tears because it was terrible and true. The next morning he woke me with his mouth, gentle, reverent, like he was apologizing with his tongue. I returned the favor until he was gripping the headboard so hard I thought the wood would splintered. Afterward, we stayed in bed, the guest room bed, tracing the marks we would left on each other. He had fingerprints on his hips. I had a faint bite mark just above my collarbone that no scarf would quite hide. We looked like a crime scene. David's return flight was booked for Friday. On Wednesday night, Mark cooked me pasta and opened the expensive bottle we would been saving for a special occasion. We both knew what the occasion was. Last Supper. We ate slowly, feeding each other forkfuls, dragging it out. When the plates were empty, he pulled me into his lap at the table and kissed me until my lips tingled. We did not make it to the couch this time. He lifted me onto the dining table where we would hosted Thanksgiving for 15 people 2 years ago and took me right there. Slow and deliberate, eyes locked the entire time. I came whispering his name. He followed with mine on his lips like a prayer and a curse. Later, in the dark, he asked the question we would both been avoiding. What happens when he lands? I had no answer. I traced the line of his jaw and memorized the feel of it, because I was not sure I would ever get to again. Thursday, we were reckless. We made love on the stairs because we could not wait the extra 20 steps to any horizontal surface. We did it against the hallway mirror and watched ourselves, strangers with familiar faces. In the afternoon, we drove up to Mount Tam with the windows down, parked at a lookout, and he pulled me into the back seat like teenagers. The risk of someone hiking past only made it sharper. That night, we finally crossed the last line. I do not know which of us suggested it. We were in the guest room again, tangled and sweaty, when Mark's hand brushed the wedding photo on the dresser. David smiling in his tux, me in white lace. Something dark and possessive flashed across Mark's face. He looked at me, a question in his eyes. I answered by taking his hand and leading him down the hallway. The master bedroom smelled faintly of David's cologne and the lavender sachets I kept in the drawers. Moonlight striped the bed through half-closed blinds. Mark hesitated on the threshold. I stepped inside, turned on the small lamp, and pulled my t-shirt over my head. The silence stretched, heavy. He crossed the room in 3 strides, lifted me onto the bed we would bought together on our 5th anniversary, and kissed me like he was claiming territory. We were slow, almost cruelly so, every touch deliberate. When he slid inside me, it felt different here, deeper, like the room itself was watching. I wrapped my legs around his waist and met him thrust for thrust, nails raking down his back hard enough to draw blood. Afterward, we lay side by side, staring at the ceiling fan turning lazy circles. The sheets smelled like us now, not David. The victory felt hollow. "I love you," Mark said into the dark. The words hung there, enormous. I turned to him, tears already gathering. "I love you too." It was not a betrayal of David, it was the truth, and it hurt worse than any lie. We did not sleep. At 4 a.m. he packed the few things he would left, scattered around the house, kissed me one last time at the door, and walked out into the pre-dawn quiet. I watched his car disappear the same way I would watch David's 3 weeks earlier, only this time I was naked under David's robe and crying so hard I had to sit on the floor. David landed at SFO at 2:17 p.m. on Friday. I picked him up at arrivals, freshly showered, hair blown out, wearing the dress he likes best. He dropped his suitcase the moment he saw me and kissed me like he had been gone 3 years instead of 3 weeks. The house smelled like lemon cleaner, and the candles I would lit to erase every trace of Mark. David carried his bag upstairs, talking a mile a minute about Singapore. While I stood at the kitchen island gripping a coffee mug so hard, I thought it might shatter. That night, David reached for me in bed, eager, loving, familiar. I let him undress me, let him touch me, let him slide inside me while I stared at the ceiling and tried to feel something other than the ghost of Mark's hands. I faked it, first time in 8 years, and hated myself for every second. 2 days later, Mark texted, "You?" "Okay." I typed and deleted a dozen replies. In the end, I sent nothing. A week after David came home, I found Mark's watch under the guest room bed. I sat on the floor holding it, the metal still warm from my hand, and cried again. Some hungers, once fed, never go quiet.